you may be, if you're a client point of contact and you interface with your IT managed services provider or with us, your company may be not quite mature enough that they have a formal budget, or that any of this is actually any current things that you require. But what you can do is you can come to us and you can certainly say, hey, give me an idea what we should spend this year. And we can provide that. You can start gathering that data year over year. And then at some point in the future, you may have a formal IT budget, but we should be able to provide this information and feedback and consultative support. Even if you don't have a formal budget, we can still meet with you at the end of the year and we go through all these things. One of the big values of it is once we've developed, once we come up with sort of our hardware that needs to be replaced list, right? So once we kind of understand that, you can kind of anticipate future IT needs. You can anticipate machines dying. You can anticipate these things from a productivity standpoint. And that can be very, very valuable just outside of the budgeting component. For example, say you have a fleet of 100 computers and they were all bought at the same time. And that fleet is now 5 years old. I would meet with you, even if we didn't have a budget to attend to. I'd say, look, there's an operational risk here. You have a bunch of really, really old computers. Let's keep that in mind as we go through this year. So even if you're not at a point where you need a formal budget put together by your managed services provider, there's still lots of valuable information that we get out of the process that I think would benefit you.
And I think one of the biggest risks going into 2023 and all this talk of recession, this talk of economic downturn, you're seeing it in some components of the economy, but not all. Budgeting gets really hard when you don't know what the future looks like. Nobody has a crystal ball. I know I've tried to find one on eBay, but it's really difficult to work with our clients and prospects on, what are you going to do? Well, I don't know what the economy is going to look like. Okay, so you almost end up, and I know in my mind's eye and as a business owner, what I'm looking at is I've got a good, better, best. Like depending on these different levers, if something happens, okay, our budget's going to shift over here. We're going to change this down, or we're going to, increase this if this happens. And so it gets a little complicated, but it's, at least for me, it's a good practice to be like, I know everything's great. I'm at here. If things really, if the wheels fall off of the economy, we're going to go to here. You have different plans already built, because having a great plan allows you to be, organized and get things done and still accomplished.
And that was going to be my last point that you just touched on, Ryan, was the budgeting and looking towards the future is not necessarily about IT budgets, but mostly about planning, right? So what we want to try and avoid is that reactive nature of the IT world and having to just react to the issues that come up. Really, when we are able to plan and have a strategy towards IT, that makes us more efficient. That makes the business more efficient. And in turn, it makes everybody successful.
You're exactly right. And I think that by having that plan, it takes away the nomenclature of IT being a cost center. IT is a cost center because it's allowed to be reactionary, because you're not budgeting, you're not planning for the future, you're not putting this at least into some sort of workbook. And so every spend is this reactionary spend, which then gives it the whole nomenclature of being a cost center. IT should really be a solution center for the business. It really should be a value driver for the business if handled appropriately.